All right, so I want to talk about the code of P0191 for I guess 2010 to I guess current 6.7 Cummins. So I've got 2012. I had this issue for a while now. Took it multiple places. They put it on their scanner, paid for diagnostics. They said, oh, all your parameters are in check. Your commanded fuel pressure is the same as your actual. So like, oh, your sensor's not bad. And then they're saying it could be injectors with the return rate being too high. So like the CP3 and all that would be fine, but the injectors themselves, I guess, are not holding enough fuel, and they're returning too much to the tank, which based on extensive research is a possibility. It's very rare, but it is possible. So one shop said I need new injectors, and this was a dealer, and they were not willing to test them. They said they didn't have the equipment, which whatever. And then I ended up bringing the truck to a known diesel shop, and they have race trucks. They specialize in Cummins, or I guess that's what their race truck is anyway. So I thought they would know it inside and out, and they hook up the computer. They're looking at parameters, say, oh yeah, it's probably your high pressure fuel sensor. I was like, okay, I've got one, let's throw it in. So they throw it in, they run another diagnostic on it, and they say, yep, checked out. 2 days later, check engine light comes back on, same exact code. Truck's driving great, by the way, but still on. It used to be intermittent before that new sensor, but now it was 100% on. So just kind of had my wits end on it. But anyway, long story short, it ended up actually being the sensor. So these mechanics were just looking at the commanded and actual, which were equaling, but they weren't looking at the actual signal voltage. So these sensors, which I've got one here, so you can see this is an OEM Bosch. This was my old new sensor that first shop put in, and got the box and everything, so it's a Bosch sensor. At key on, they're supposed to have 0.5 volts, so a half a volt to that center pin, which is your signal wire. I can't remember what exactly 1 and 2 are, but one of them is your power, the other one's your ground. It should be a 5 volt in from the PCM, and then obviously just ground, and then your signal or reference wire should be 0.5 at key on, not running, just key on. And how you can also test that, God, I used to have it written down, but basically your sensor is way back there at the back side of your rail. Can't really see it, but the pigtail, you can undo it and you'll probe one of the wires. So your power wire, which is going to be your red one, or pink-ish, you go from that to your battery ground, and that will tell you, and this is just key on, not running, just key on. You should get 5 volts going from your red wire / pink wire directly to ground. Your other wire on the outside should be your ground wire. So you can go from battery positive to that ground wire, and you should get whatever your battery reads. So test your battery first. Whatever voltage you're getting at your battery is the same voltage you should get directly to that ground wire. And then you can also test from the PCM back to the PCM and do your power and ground from your connector, and that'll tell you if that loop, I guess, is working proper. And then to test the actual sensor, what I did was I went to Max Tow and I got this harness. So this is a, I guess, adapter, where if you want to run an aftermarket fuel pressure sensor, this just taps in, so you don't have to butcher your factory wiring. So this end goes directly in your sensor, your factory wiring harness plugs into here. This is your ground, this is your signal wire, that middle wire. So what I did was I spliced that in, well, not spliced it, but installed it, and then key on, you can put your multimeter directly to these two wires, and you should be able to see your 0.5 volts. So this sensor, which was the new sensor they put in, it was reading 0.59. So 0.09 of a volt makes a world of difference, and my truck did not like it, kept throwing the code, would not fix it, and no one went as far as to back probe the damn sensor. So 3 months later, I finally found this, figured out I'd do it myself. Super easy. What makes it even easier is having leads. Where are they? There we go. Sorry, doing this with one hand. But these leads, these came on my cheap Harbor Freight multimeter. This is obviously not that multimeter, but they work great. They pinch that little wire, hold on to it, and you can run the truck, do whatever you need to do, and they will stay on there. So yeah, and then another thing that I noticed when I had my old sensor, or the bad sensor, or I guess even my old sensor that was bad and the new bad sensor, the truck, God, where'd I put my keys? So these trucks do their own diagnostic only at idle. So they're testing the sensor at idle so they can, I guess, test the sensitivity of it. Now I've got a race me tuner, and what these trucks do is, so at idle, the truck is, once it's up to temp, now mine, as soon as my truck hits 140, it starts doing it. But again, it's only going to do it at idle. It's not going to do it while driving down the road or anything like that. It can be in gear, but it needs to be idling. It will, let's say my truck used to idle at about 5,300 to 5,400 PSI of commanded pressure, and that was my actual pressure as well. Excuse me. And then it would trickle down to 4,300, and then it would bump right back up to 5,801 exactly, hold for a few seconds, drop down, and it would do this multiple times. I did it anywhere from 5 to 20 times, and sometimes it would just continuously do it. So what it's doing is, it's doing kind of like an if-then statement. It's trying to slowly reduce pressure and read the signal coming from that sensor, and then it'll ramp it up, and it slowly brings it back down so we can see if that sensor is working properly, and I guess if the circuit is working properly. And come to find out, the truck should only do it one time while during that run cycle. So let's say you start your truck in the morning, and it could stay on all day. It doesn't matter how long, but it should only do it one time, and then it'll level out, and it will not check it again. So as long as it passes that sequence once, it won't do it again. But if it fails that sequence, it will continue to do it until it sees 3 passes in a row, and then it'll go back to only doing 1 pass. So I will start my truck, and now it's up to temp, and I'll get, it's already on my fuel pressure. And a lot of guys say that this, so this is my actual rail pressure. They say key on, that should be like 600 to 800 PSI. My old 2 sensors, so I guess the original one in the truck and the bad new one that I just took out, were reading roughly 600. This brand new sensor does not, but this one works perfect. I don't know what the difference is. I first thought, man, this sensor's bad too, but it runs perfect. So I'll start it. You can see my temp. Engine coolant is 171. And then you should see it peak up here in a second to 5801. There it is. And it'll do this, it'll hit 5801 6 times, come down to 4300, peak back up, and it'll just keep doing this. And that's it, testing that sensor in the circuit, making sure that it's reading within parameters. And then once it says, okay, sensor's good, it'll stop and level out and be just butter smooth. So we'll just let it go through its little sequence here. I haven't been counting, that might be the last one, I don't know. And there you go, it's leveled out. and then it will not do that again until I turn the truck off and turn it back on. I can go all day long, won't do it. And that is exactly how that should operate. So if your trucks, if you don't have, come on truck, stop it. If you don't have a fuel pressure gauge, you'll probably never know that's happening. Or if you don't have an aftermarket exhaust, like my truck's obviously deleted, so I can hear it change pitch. It's really not noticeable in park, but in drive, you can hear it just, ooh, it'll come down, ooh, pop up and come down. But before, it was just relentless. It kept doing it constantly, would not stop. So long story short, do your own work. Don't trust every mechanic. Even though they say, oh, I've been in there 20 years or 30 years or whatever, between all the guys in the shop, we have a million years of experience. It doesn't mean crap unless they're physically willing to do the work and look at the details. Details matter when you're dealing with stuff like this. That sensor is so precise and so sensitive that you've got to do it. And this little thing, $20. This harness was $20, and I wish I'd have bought it from the beginning. Like, granted, I didn't know about it till towards the end, but it's been such a nightmare trying to get people to fix this thing. And everyone says, oh, it's this, it's that. I did the FCA, I did the sensor, I did 2 fuel filters, and I was about to spend $2,500 on injectors. And come to find out, doing a simple 5-minute test told me exactly what I needed to know. And again, it was 0.09 out of spec. That is so minuscule. Like, if you're not really checking and paying attention to things, I could see how it'd be easy to overlook. And I think it's just mechanics these days, not all, but I feel like most, are just parts changers. That's all they do. They just looking at a screen, pushing a couple buttons, and say, oh, yep, it's probably this. But again, do your own work if you can. Spend the time, do the research. It might be difficult trying to find the information. Hopefully this helps everyone. But yeah, it's pretty easy to change out, pretty easy to check. And I'll show you the so to get to the sensor, it is kind of difficult. It's just an awkward spot. So you've got, there's like an assembly bracket, which I'll try to show you. Make sure the hood's popped. Let's see if I can get in here. So back there, come on, light, right there, you can kind of see that bracket back there. Damn, this light is killing me. So that's right back there. But anyway, that's like an assembly bracket to help lift the motor in. The sensor is like right between that and the head, and it's difficult to get to. You can't get right on it. So getting, come on camera, a flexible 1/2-inch ratchet like that, and you're working at roughly that angle. Like, it sucks, but if you can contort yourself, lay on the engine, do what you have to do. It is a 1 1/16. If it'll focus, it doesn't matter either. Right there we go. And a flexible 1/2-inch, and it's gonna suck, but you can do it. I promise you. Just anyway, that's it. Hopefully it helps.